is what I will do for you as a script consultant or a dramaturg. So my intention is to help you tell the best story possible. The best story that it is that you can tell, I want to help you get there. And how do we tell the best story possible? It's by telling the clearest story possible. And by clearest, I mean we need to understand exactly what is your intention. What is your intention with the story? What are you trying to achieve, communicate, celebrate, investigate? We need to pick an intention. And once we have an intention, that exists sort of as the baseline through which we orient all of our choices around. So a story can have multiple intentions, and I think it's really juicy when it does. But if we pick one that's really, really strong, we can create around it and be able to hold up our offerings towards this original sort of baseline intention. And once that is strong, we can decide whether or not the other things that we are offering are in alignment with that intention or not. So my responsibility is, number one, to understand what your intention is with your story. And then number two, is to make sure that the offering that you create with your script, with your piece of writing, is the highest possible, like, exact match to the intention that you set. You set the intention, I don't. I just help to make sure that what you've written is what you want to have written. I also think that it's really, really important, and I commit to you that I will come into the practice with a sense of self-awareness and self-responsibility. So this self-awareness has a lot to do with the fact that it has everything to do with the fact that, like, I'm a human being, I'm a person, okay? I see the world through a particular lens, and I am informed by the way that I walk through the world. So I'll split this up into sort of two categories. The one category I'll say, we'll call it creative sort of preferences and biases. And then the second one, we'll call it personal, even though obviously there's overlap because everything is everything. Shout out to Lauryn Hill, duh. So when it comes to creative preferences, I myself, Makambe, who is also a writer and a shenanigan and a person who makes art in the world, I have certain preferences about the way that I like stories to go. I have certain preferences about the way that I like to use nuance and the way that I like to subvert expectations and the way that I like to celebrate things that are not commonly celebrated. I have certain preferences about the way that I like the element of surprise to exist in a story, and that I never want my audience to feel ahead of me in any way, shape, or form. And those are my creative and artistic preferences, and I love them and they are beautiful for me, but they are not for every creator and every story. And so self-awareness and self-responsibility is, for me as the dramaturg who is helping to guide you to make your thing, it is very important for me to know that, like, Makambe, you have these creative biases. And that doesn't mean that that's how every story needs to be told. There's multiple different ways to tell a story. And my job is to be aware and responsible about the fact that, like, yes, I have certain biases, but it's not about me because I'm not the one writing the story. And if I, as the person who is helping you to execute what it is that you are channeling, don't have a proper awareness of, like, where do my own sort of tastes and preferences come in, it can get really, really messy. So that's sort of an example of the creative part of it. Let's talk about the personal part. So I'm a woman, I'm a Black queen. I was born in Zambia. I'm an African babe. I was raised in the Caribbean. I am femme. I am cisgendered. I am straight-ish. I live in Canada. I have all these parts of my life and my identity that obviously affect the way it is that I am going to read, experience, or interpret any piece of work. And I don't need to get rid of those things, but I need to be aware of them. I need to understand that there's certain parts of my experience that are gonna make certain things ping out for me. And I need to just be aware of that so that when I am reflecting back to you, whether or not you are hitting your intention, I am doing the best job that I can to make sure that my own things are not getting in the way. Now, I don't want to ever erase myself in any process. Like, I believe that my unique identity is amazing, and I think that it is valuable to have that lens within a creative process, but it's just to have it with awareness and responsibility, right? So let's say, for example, you are writing a play and you make the Black person die first. As a Black person, I'm going to notice. I'm going to notice, and I'm going to have, literally my body's going to have this reaction to it. And it's okay for my body to have this reaction. But what I'm trying to explain to you is that I know that my Blackness and the way that I walk through the world and the way that I interpret and hold stories about specifically Black death sits in my body in a particular way. So I will reflect that to you honestly, and you get to decide whether or not that's part of the audience experience that you might want someone to have. Now, it might ping differently, for example, if you're not writing for a predominantly Black audience, which is your prerogative. I don't know what the story is that you're telling, but what I'm saying is, ooh, like, I know you're trying to make this play for those, small town Norwegians, and they're probably not gonna catch this like I am, but I just want you to know that this is happening for me, and my job is to give you the full information and fully own and be responsible for what's going on for me and reflect that to you with clarity. And then you get to make the decision as to, like, okay, I actually want to change the way I go about that, or actually that's okay with me, I'm going to keep going forward with that. So my responsibility is to be fully self-aware in that regard. I'll give you another example. When I was in university, I wrote a play called Mud, and it won a playwriting competition. It won a couple, and we had a reading of it at the school. And in this play, there is a really complicated storyline between a mother and an adult daughter. And what we find out over the course of the play is that the daughter had been abused by the mother, and that part of this abuse was sexual. So I had a particular intention in creating that very complicated and painful dynamic between these two women, because there was something that I was trying to say about how women pass on trauma to other women. And to do it through a mother and daughter was very intentional, because basically, I don't know, I'm my mom's mini-me in a lot of ways, right? So that was my intention. I had a professor watch the reading, and it got back to me that she said that basically she didn't like the show, or that something didn't resonate with her, because she said men are the abusers, women are not the abusers. So she didn't like that because she felt like I was like presenting abuse wrong in her eyes. I can understand why she might think that and say that, and I can very much understand, because of the triggering nature of the material, how she could even have a very strong reaction to that. I understand that, but I wasn't trying to tell a story about a man abusing a woman, because that's not the theme that I was exploring. That was not my intention. My intention was to show how trauma goes through generationally, down generations through people of the same gender, and exactly the nuance of how that's passed down, and to explore that. First of all, women abuse women all the time, so like that's not even true. But what I'm saying to you is that this person, maybe they had like a personal, like I can very much understand that they might have been triggered, and also I'm not mad at them. But what I'm saying is, like, if that person were my dramaturg when I was writing the piece and was not aware as to like where that was coming from inside of her, and if I was also the type of person to listen to her, like she could have guided me to change the story that I actually wanted to tell, when really the intention that I had was to talk about what the abuse and the trauma looks like passed down between mother and daughter. So my job is to be self-responsible, because I'm a human being, I'm an artist, I'm a deeply feeling person. I have a lot of feelings. That is why I make art, so I can put my feelings somewhere. And that's why you like art too, because you have lots of thoughts and feelings and you're trying to put them somewhere, and I support you and I'm here for you. So my promise to you is that I will do the best that I can to be self-aware as to where the feedback is coming from, and to be aware of where is Makambe within this feedback, like the subjective Makambe, whether it's this is my creative bias and I really feel like plays should have a song at the end just because I like that. Or this is my own life, this is my own trauma, these are the things that are living in my body. And I'm comfortable being able to articulate to you, being like, that's pinging for me, but that might just be a personal thing for me because I once experienced this, this, and this is what I found from it. But my responsibility and my promise to you is to be A, to communicate that clearly, and B, to take full responsibility for like the fact that it's a Makambe thing. So you as the writer get to do with that information what you will. Yeah? Okay, great. I'll give you a different example that's not about that kind of trauma. Let's say you in your film script have written that there is a character who breaks their leg. Their leg gets shattered and they are in a cast. And let's say that in my own life, I have experienced the trauma of a broken leg. Let's say that in your script, you have this character heal and get out of that cast in 2 weeks. I will read that and probably be like, hey, as a person who has actually lived this, my experience with this was that it actually took several months. And even when the cast came off, there was still such a huge healing process. It was so painful. I had still to do so much physio. So it doesn't feel realistic to me to have this character's leg shattered in scene 1 and then 2 weeks later in scene 6, they're just like running a triathlon again. I might communicate something to you like that. Then I will ask, what is your intention? Because you are the creator, you are in the driver's seat, you get to make whatever you want. I'm just here to make sure that the thing that you are making is the thing that you want to be making. I want to make sure that the thing that you're making is saying and doing the thing that you want it to do. So I'll ask you, what's your intention? Because the fact that it's not realistic doesn't mean that it doesn't make a great and dynamic and fantastic story. We can literally do anything that we want in stories. Like, you don't understand. Like, we can do, and like, you can do anything. Take anything you want. Take anything you want. Do you remember that video? Random. I'll link it below if you're weird and want to watch the video. You can do anything that you want in a story. It just depends on how you frame it, and whether or not that should stay or whether or not that choice makes sense is based on your intention. So I would say option A. Option A, have the character heal the broken leg over 4 months or a more realistic time frame. That's option A. If you want it to be realistic, if your intention is to show a realistic portrayal as to how long this leg will take to heal and what this process will be, then you have to stretch it out to 4 months. That's option A. Option B, keep it at 2 weeks, but understand that that tells a different story. It's interesting, but as long as we understand that we're doing that on purpose, it can still work. So if your intention is to show how magical it is to work with this particular one doctor, and your intention is to explore a world or a story or a scenario in which these magical types of things happen, then maybe that broken leg healing in 2 weeks in a world where all broken legs take 4 months, 6 months to heal is actually exactly what you're going for. So to be clear, it's not exactly about something that's realistic or not realistic, because it depends on the story that we're telling. And stories are about the extraordinary. Whether that is the extraordinary that we find within the mundane, whether that extraordinary piece is found in these very like small and subtle interactions, you know, a conversation that you have with the person on the bus that they don't even know is extraordinary or profound for you, but you walk away being like, oh, I just had a moment. Oh, I think I'm never going to forget that conversation, or I'm never going to forget that person, right? Stories are about the extraordinary. And even when stories explore or celebrate or examine the ordinary, there is something extraordinary in our ability to analyze and comment on them, however it is that the story is going to come together. So you get to choose what it is that you're going for. And if you're not sure 100%, that's fine. We can work together to figure out exactly what that intention is. But the thing that I need from you is to be honest with yourself and honest with me, because I'm not here to write your thing. That's not my job. I have my own things to write. I have my own things to, you think I'm also not busy? I'm busy. I'm not here to write your thing. You're here to write your thing. I'm here to just hype you up and make sure you feel great as you write your thing, and make sure that the thing makes sense, and make sure that I can give you as much information as I possibly can as a flawed and quirky, imperfect, but very enthusiastic human being, so that you can feel confident in your story and so that the story itself is structurally sound. Because if your intention is to show uh, how long and painful healing processes are in the medical system, let's say, and you're showing that somebody broke their leg and then they're healing in 2 weeks and then they're just like playing baseball the next day, like that's not in line with your intention. Does that make sense? So all I'm going to do is just continue to reflect back to you. Basically, my job is to be your mirror. I don't create, I can give you ideas, but my job is to reflect back to you if you're doing the thing that you want to do. The last thing that I will say is that as a dramaturg or a script consultant, my job is to really empower you and remind you, just in case you forgot, that you know where the story needs to go ultimately. I am not here to tell you where the story needs to go. I'm here to reflect back to you if it's making sense within itself. And if you are working with words, I think it is valuable to be able to work back and forth to articulate, this is what I'm going for. Did I hit it with my words? You don't have to know fully where you're going when you start the story. When I'm writing, I don't always start with an intention. Sometimes a character will just start speaking to me, and then it'll be later and later as I've sort of generated some content and figured out the world, that I'm like, oh, I think what I'm going for in this story is this. And sometimes that intention comes out super clear for me. So when I was writing Our Fathers, my intention was that, so if you don't know, Our Fathers is it's a play that explores the first moments of afterlife of a Black teenager after he has been murdered. And Our Fathers is it's inspired by my processing of the murder of Trayvon Martin. And I was watching the news as everyone else was, and that was the time where we were really, like, BLM was in a really full swing, because obviously, like, Trayvon is the boy who launched the movement. Shout out to Trayvon. But at in those waves, we would hashtag these dead Black people's names, and it was just hashtag after hashtag after hashtag after hashtag after hashtag. And what I was processing was like, man, like, we're seeing all these hashtags, and it's very important that we know these people's names and that we say their names and that we advocate for them. And also, that name represents a whole life, right? That name represents a favorite breakfast cereal, a person he wanted to take to prom, things that he was good at, things that he was bad at. That name represents a collection of memories and stories and loved ones. And I wanted the audience to remember and humanize these names that we see in headlines. That was one of my intentions for the show. Another intention for the show was that Trayvon is the boy who launched the movement, right? And we call him that because it's not until his killer was found not guilty, and the language of Black Lives Matter was tweeted after the fact as a response to, how are we letting the guy go? We all know he did it, what? Right? So we held and hold Trayvon up as the boy who launched the movement, and there's something really powerful about that. And I continue to be humbled by the power and the magnitude of that soul. And also, I think from a human perspective, soul perspective different, but from a human perspective, that was a 17-year-old who didn't choose that. That was a 17-year-old who was talking to a girl he liked on the phone. That was a 17-year-old who was like walking home and getting ready to watch the rest of the basketball game. He didn't choose to launch a movement. And we will remember him for that, of course, but I also wanted people to remember his humanity and that, like, he was just a kid. So those are my two main intentions in creating that piece. A, that these hashtags are universes because every name that is a hashtag is a person's whole world, and that world is big and rich and colorful. And B, I wanted people to actually learn a bit more about Trayvon and understand that he was like a kid who didn't choose this. So yes, of course we frame him as that, but I also felt like it was important to understand that he was an actual person. And I didn't know him, of course, but in my imagining, I felt like, ooh, we we advocate for these Black folks in our community, and we go to the streets and we march and we sign the letters and we do the petitions and we do all those things, and those things are very important. And also, if we are to lose members of our community, and our community is our family, then it's also important to just get together and celebrate and acknowledge life and grieve and mourn and have a safe space to cry. So having those three intentions, I want people, Black folks, to have a safe space to come and mourn. I want people to understand that like Trayvon was a person, or just really sit with his humanity, or my interpretation of his humanity. And I wanted folks to understand that every hashtag, every dead Black person is their whole world. So setting those intentions was really, really useful in the creative and the editing process, because every single choice I made, I got to make sure that as long as I make that choice, it's still hitting these boxes. If I make this choice, does it still feel like I'm making a safe place for Black folks to mourn? So one of the things that I did with my team is that we agreed, even though we would show a depiction of the moment of his murder, that we wouldn't use any sounds of violence, because we didn't want to trigger the audience coming in, but we still wanted to show the moment. So we talked about, okay, in order to reach the intention of like, we want Black folks to feel safe enough that they can actually mourn and feel, let's go about how we tell the story like this while we're still doing the thing, but we're navigating with the softness, because our intention is for people to actually come and feel held and to just sort of, I knew all that stuff going in. I didn't know that I knew it, but I found out that I knew it because I was blessed enough to have dramaturgs, hi Audrey Dwyer if you're watching, and lots of other people around me to clarify like, what is it that you're going for? And so the writing process was like, I would write this thing and then I would be asked like, what are you going for? And is that matching? So that's what I want to do for you. I want to empower and remind you that you are the boss, you're the hove, you're the jefe. Okay? Like, you are the authority. You received this story for a reason. That's why you're writing it. So I can't tell you what's right or wrong. I can tell you what resonates with me. I can tell you why it resonates. As a person who has studied story, I have written things that you have probably heard about and things that you haven't heard about. I also live in the world and consume stories as much as you all do. I'm also an actor, so that's why I love working with scripts, because I know what it's like to pick up a text and be like, okay, as an actor, there's something juicy here. And so that is another part of my perspective that I bring to any sort of dramaturgical or script consultation process, is like, I can tell you as an actor if this feels like something I can work with. But it's very important for me to always remind you and hype you up about the fact that like, you're the boss. So you don't have to take any note that you don't want to for any reason whatsoever. I acknowledge who I am, and I acknowledge that I like what I like and I don't like what I don't like. And I'm a human being is what I'm trying to say. I would like to acknowledge that I'm a human being. Oh my gosh, let me say that better. I acknowledge that I come from a particular perspective. I love and I own my perspective, and I will own that in our interactions together. And you can decide, as I hopefully clearly communicate, which parts of that perspective you want to use to influence what it is that you're writing. So I might be like, for me, this ping's kind of funny, or like, ooh, this moment feels really sharp. Do you want it to have that kind of impact, or do you not? And we can use that to your advantage, so that I'm always reflecting back to you, okay, great, this choice is cool, but if you make this choice, then it means that these are the themes that are coming out of it. Is that what you want, or is it not? And if it's not, then I will help you figure out some ways to pivot and give you some potential options as to how to go about creating the thing that is in exact resonance with your intention. Well, that's a little bit about me. If you're watching this at the end of 2025 and you want to work with me, hi, I'm Makambe. I have two offerings going on at the moment. The first is that if you would like notes on a full or partial draft, I would love to meet with you and talk about it. I will read the draft a couple of times. I'll take detailed notes, and then we can meet for between 1 and 2 hours and talk about it. So that's going on right now, and that is for $275 plus GST Canadian. And the second offering is just for folks who are just like, I just want to kiki for an hour. So if you're like, I want to brainstorm. So let's say you haven't started writing yet, or let's say that you started writing but you're not sure, or you just want to talk through the themes and the concepts. I would love to be a sounding board and let you know if what I feel like you're talking about has legs. In general, and I'm not saying this to just hype you up for the sake of hyping up, I believe that kind of everything has legs. It's just that you need to make sure that you have the right intention. And if you have the right intention, then you can flow through and really make sure that that thing stands and does the thing that you want it to do. And if you don't have the right intention and you're going about it either in the wrong way or not for the right reasons, or you're not properly tapping into what you need to tap into, then that's when the writing process gets difficult. And we all go through that. Even me, even me. Fine baby girl like me, even me, I go through that. So if you're about that life and you want to get in touch, let's talk. Other than that, I will leave you with that. Happy writing, happy dreaming, happy inspiring yourself, to inspire yourself to know that you can do it and you can do it well, and that there are people who know you and don't know you who are genuinely rooting for you. I think that sometimes the world right now is bad. It's bad, it's hard, it's scary, and we need truth tellers and we need storytellers. And so I'm really, really, really passionate about helping people tell stories, especially people who maybe haven't or are new to storytelling in this particular form, because we need new stories. We need new perspectives. We need your interpretation of, even if it's of an existing thing, like we need more from everyone. Okay, I have a doctor's appointment. Bye.